things of earth are teeming in the light of your glory and grace. I'll set my sights upon heaven. I'm fixing my eyes on you. Oh, 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 yeah. Oh, oh. I'm fixing my eyes on you. Oh, 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 electric. This boy is electric and you're sparkling like the universe connected. And I'm buzzing night after night after night. This joy is electric. This joy is electric and you're circuiting through. I'm so happy that I'm alive. Happy I'm alive at the same time as you. Cause you've got a higher power. Got me singing every second, dancing every hour. Oh yeah, you've got a higher power. And you're really someone I wanna know. Up shaking just to let you know now you've got a higher power. You got me singing every second, dancing every hour. Oh yeah, you've got a higher power. You once in any lifetime. I'm going a million miles an hour. Went for so long, I've been down on my knees in your love song. Set me over and over for so long. I've been down on my knees to your love song. Floats me when I was searching, your love was never.
People awake. Well, welcome. My name is Mitchell. I work with our high school students here. I just have a couple quick announcements. First, if you are a young adult and looking to get plugged in, we are starting this up. The leaders for this group are actually going to be out in the lookout hall between services and after service today. So if you're interested, Danielle and Sean would love to talk to you about that. But yeah, the group is starting back up pretty soon. But yeah, if you're just looking for more info, come talk to us. We'll make sure you will be getting all of that. Sorry about that. Next, we are also starting some onboarding groups. So if you've been here for a while, or if you're new but you're looking for a way to get plugged in, you just don't know where to start, we're starting these groups that are just 5 or 6 week groups to just kind of get to know a few people. Blair and Tracy are leading this first one, and this is just a great way for us to kind of figure out what your passions are, what you're interested in, and then how we can either find something that lines up with that or create something to get you plugged in. We want you here. We want you to be involved. We want you to feel like you're contributing, because we need everybody to contribute to make this church happen. So if you're interested in that, or you're just lost, you don't even know what you're looking for, this is a great way to get plugged in. But those are starting up at the end of next month as well, so we'd love to have you for that. Last, we are doing another baptism this year. This is something we haven't done before, but it's going to be on a Wednesday night during youth group. So this is May 4th coming up. This is not just for students. This is for anybody who wants to get baptized. If you're interested, you can sign up on Church Center or through our website, and we can just kind of enter into a conversation. So by you signing up, it's not saying I'm getting baptized 100%, I'm in. It's just saying I'd like to have a conversation. So we'll reach out to you. We'll talk to you about that. But it's gonna be different. It's gonna be interesting. It's not gonna be outside like we've always done, because it'll probably still be cold. So we're gonna do it in the lookout hall. We'll have our baptismal right under the cross in the lookout hall. Should be a really cool, different atmosphere, but we're looking forward to it, and we hope even if you're not getting baptized, you come on a Wednesday night, kind of change up your plans that week, and just come check it out, because it's gonna be pretty cool. So that's all I've got. If you guys can stand, since you've all got name tags on, find somebody you don't know, and then get their name without the awkward question of, hi, how are you? I don't know you. But yeah, turn and talk to somebody.
Amazing grace. This is unfailing.
Come on, church, you sing this with all we got.
Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life. That I would be set free. Lord Jesus, I sing all that you've done for me. All that you've done for me.
All right, come on, church, let's put our hands together. We're so glad that you are here. We're just going to worship a little bit more. We're going to give it all we got, all right? Come on. We sing. And heaven thundered, and the world was born. And light begins and ends in the dust you form. Faith commanded, and the mountains move. And fear is losing ground to our hope. And unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. The impossible things in your name, they shall be done. And freedom conquered, all our chains undone. And sin defeated, Jesus is overcome. And mercy triumphed when the third day dawned. And darkness was denied when the stone was gone. And unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. And impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. And impossible things in your name, they shall be done. All right, come on, church, we'll put our hands up. Now, I don't know what you have going on this morning, but I just pray that we can all bring all of our worries, all of our burden just out this morning, and we can sing it with all we have. So come on, we declare this together. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable, and we'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. celebrate that this morning. I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the ocean. I need you now to do the same thing for me. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. I'm calling on the God of David, who made a shepherd boy courageous. I may not face the light, but I've got my own giant. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness, on your faithfulness. You heard your children, you hear your children now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You are providing, you are providing now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You move in power then, God move in power now. You are the same God, you are the same God. You You're the same. You're the same, God. Father, this morning we give you worship. We come to you asking for peace, knowing that you were a healer once and you're a healer now. You continue to be the Savior for us over and over and over again. We worship you, God. We love you. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Friends, thank you so much for singing with us. You guys sound amazing. Why don't you guys go ahead and take a seat?
Well, I'm glad you're here at Waypoint today, here or online. You're here for the last week of our Joseph series. We've been looking at a lot of content, and there's a lot that we had to leave undone. That's okay. I hope you've seen how the scriptures can be really interesting, layered, engaging. I hope that's working for you and that you're digging into that story and wanting to know more. In 2 weeks, we're going to deck out this place with tables, and we're going to have a Passover meal. I don't know if you've ever been through that before, but it's kind of a tradition that we have here that gets us ready for Easter. So you'll come and we'll do a mini Passover meal, and there's so much Jesus in it. It gets us ready, and so we're really excited to do that. I hope you'll come back. The following week starts Easter. We're going to start a new series off then. Last week, I showed you a parallel story in the book of Joseph, or in the story of Joseph, where there was something that went on in his life, and then there was a parallel thing where he got to do a do-over because he was kind of stuck. He was stuck until he started to get some things right, and you got to see that unfold in the scriptures. I want to take you to another parallel story today, but this one's a little bit different. It's not necessarily a do-over for Joseph. This is family history kind of stuff. In fact, the story that this parallels, he's not even born for a big part of it. He's just, for a little bit, maybe he remembers some of this, but most of this is going to just be like family history that was told down, and maybe he recalls it. And so we're going to see a parallel that's going to help us explain what's going on as we read something in the text. So let me just bring you up to speed. We've covered over the last few weeks, we went through chapter 39, where Joseph interacted with Potiphar and his wife. In 40, he went to jail. He interpreted dreams in jail. In 41, he's elevated. He's now in Pharaoh's court. And from that position, he's actually gone, and for 7 years, he's been gathering in food. The harvest has been good, and he's been storing it away. By chapter 42, 2 years of the famine have gone by, and that's when his family starts to run low on food, and they show up in Egypt. And this odd thing happens. This is 42, verse 7. It says this: as soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be strangers and spoke harshly to them. Why? Why is he hiding himself? Why is he speaking harshly? This doesn't make sense. Now, if you think, okay, wait, the reason he's doing that is because he doesn't know if his brothers have changed or not. They might still be terrible people, and he's trying to figure that out. But if you're suggesting that he has to be careful, he's second in command of Egypt. If anybody should be terrified, worried that they haven't changed, the brothers should be. Because when this gets revealed, the person that they wronged is going to hold a lot of power. But what we see here is that Joseph seems to be responding in a way that's not healthy or good. Why is he hiding? Why is he not revealing himself? Now, it is fair to note all the things that Joseph doesn't know, because there's something weird happened. Joseph was elevated to power 9 years before this little incident happened. 9 years. And in that time, Not once did he send a messenger home to Dad, hey, I'm alive, I'm in Egypt, you should know I'm here. Why didn't he do that? We'll find out later in the story, the Pharaoh doesn't have a problem with this, doesn't have a problem with his family being around. Here's what Joseph doesn't know. What he remembers is that his dad sent him out into the wilderness to be with his brothers, where his brothers threw him in a pit and then eventually sold him into slavery. He doesn't know if Dad is in on this or not. He doesn't know that his brothers dipped the coat in blood and showed it to his dad. He doesn't know that they lied to him. He doesn't know that his dad wept unconsolably for a long period of time. He has no idea of any of that. So he's got this kind of wound in his heart that he remembers. And the thing is, he's almost relying on that moment of harm, and so he treats them harshly. He hides and doesn't reveal himself. He didn't need to. What are they going to do to hurt him with his position of power now? But the problem wasn't in power anymore. The problem had to do with something that was going on inside of Joseph's heart. He'd been messed up, and all of a sudden, all this stuff gets dug up when he sees those brothers again. Now, I think it's interesting. It's been 22 years since he saw his brothers. 22 years. Joseph has carved out a pretty good life. He made it through 2 pits. Sure, he was responsible for a little bit of the first one, right? He lied about his brothers. He wasn't helping with that kind of stuff there. But he overcame all that loneliness, all that isolation. He engaged God in a relationship that allowed him to interpret dreams. He's on a path where he's doing stuff that's honoring God by rescuing, we don't know how many, countless people from starvation. He's got a pretty good life. But he sees his brothers, and almost immediately he starts treating them the way this family treats each other, which is with deception. This family excels at deception. They're incredible at it. I wrote down a whole list of things that you could pull from the story. Laban and Jacob, we're going to look at that one today. Simeon and Levi, remember, they deceived Shechem and then killed all the men in that town. Joseph deceived the dad, gave a false testimony, slander about his brothers. The brothers lied to dad about Joseph. We have Judah lying to Tamar, deceiving Tamar. You have it all over the place. And then what do you have? You have this moment where Joseph could rewrite the story in a different way. And what does he do? He covers up. He hides, he deceives, and he starts testing them. And the first test he asks for is he wants to make sure his brother's alive. I'm going to hold Simeon in jail. I want you to go home and return. He's not going to say my younger brother, but return with this younger brother you claim you have. So that's a test. And that's where we're at in this story. Now, I want to take you to the story that it parallels, but I've not taught this story before. We've not done this, so I've got to bring you up to speed on this. And it is another example of the deception that this family lives with deception. Not just with others, with each other. So the story that I want to tell you, I'm going to go through it very quickly until we get to the point where we can stop, and then I'll start linking them. And maybe that's the best way to call this parallel. There are all kinds of links between these two stories where you stop and you ask yourself, have I read this before? Have I seen this somewhere else? And the process of that is supposed to help you recall and put these two stories beside each other so you can understand what's going on. So let me get you there. Our story starts way, way back. Isaac is the son of Abraham. He has 2 boys, Jacob and Esau. Esau is the oldest, and by right, he will receive 2 portions of the inheritance upon Isaac's death. Except Jacob doesn't accept that. And he dresses up, he puts some stuff on his arms, he goes in and he talks to his blind father in a way to trick him into getting the blessing, and he steals the inheritance from his brother. So already you have some deception with Jacob taking advantage of his brother. And as the story unfolds, Isaac then suggests that Jacob, you should travel north. You should go north to find a bride. And this was kind of twofold. I want you to marry somebody from the family, somebody that we know, but I also want to protect you from Esau because there's a good chance that he'll kill you for stealing from him. So Jacob travels north, and it records that he finds a family, and the family he finds is an uncle called Laban. And Laban is a dirtball, but it's okay because so is Jacob, and they go really well together, right? It's a great combination. There's going to be some fireworks. Where it gets interesting is Jacob falls in love with Laban's youngest daughter, Rachel, and he wants to marry her. It's like, I'd like to marry her. What do we have to do to make this happen? And he says, work for me for 7 years. You can marry her if you work for me for 7 years. And listen how this is written. It's so Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her, right? The Hallmark crowd just swooned. Oh, he's such a great guy. No, wait. He's not a great guy, but neither is Laban. Like, this is terrible stuff. He worked 7 years so he can finally marry her. One problem. Laban has come to realize that Jacob is an incredible shepherd. It's why he's getting wealthy. He's growing his flocks. All kinds of good things are happening. He doesn't want to lose him. And so on the wedding night, when it gets dark, he takes his oldest daughter, Leah, and puts her in the marital tent. We could go through all of the customs. I'm not going to right now. This was normal. And he would go in at that point, and he would lay with her, and that would be official. So it's dark. It's not like what you know. There's no lights. He goes into this dark tent. He sleeps with this woman, and in the morning finds out he's married the wrong woman. He's not very happy about it, as you can imagine. Why? Because he's been deceived. It's just a common thing between these two. He's deceived. He goes to Laban and says, you said I could marry Rachel. And Laban uses this excuse. I can't let my oldest daughter marry or not be married and let my youngest daughter marry. She had to be married first. And Jacob insists, we had a deal. I want to marry her. What's it going to take? And Laban says, work for me 7 more years and you can marry her right now. And Jacob says, done deal. So he marries a second daughter. No problems will come from that at all, right? Lots and lots of issues come from that. You can go read the story. It's terrible, the jealousy and all of the stuff that happens there. 14 years have passed now. He's worked for free for 14 years, and now he decides it's time to build his own estate. So he enters into an agreement with Laban. Certain number of sheep or goats, it's mostly goats, who have these spots or speckles, they'll be mine. And they keep flip-flopping because Jacob starts cheating his uncle Laban. He actually gives the animals certain things that change the coat colors so that he can get the good sheep and the good goats. And he knows what he's doing because he's pretty good at this. And he starts to amass a pretty good herd, but Laban will not be outdone. Laban starts changing the arrangement. Oh, those are good sheep. Those are mine now, not those. And they start just going back and forth, messing with each other, till we get to a point now, about 6 years later, where Jacob says, I'm out of here. I'm going to leave. He actually calls the 2 women out into a field, and they have a conversation because he's worried they won't want to leave Dad. And they don't like their dad either. They're like, no, we're with you. Let's get out of here. And so they decide, without telling Laban, to pack up everything. Jacob's going to take the daughters, the grandkids, the servants, all the animals that are rightfully his in that moment, and he's just going to leave without saying a word. He's going to get out of there. And that's what he does. 3 days later, Laban finds out that Jacob has taken everything, and he pursues him. He gets his family together, and he pursues him, and he has bad intentions. We know this because God actually interrupts his travels with a dream and basically tells him, you are not to mess with Jacob. Do you understand? And so this is all playing out, but there's one more piece of the puzzle that we need for this to make sense. Right before they left town, right before they're hightailing it out of there, Rachel goes into her father's tent and steals idols from him. These idols would have been, we're talking this day and age where people would have put a lot of stake in those sorts of things. And they would have, granted their success to this. I'm successful, I'm doing well because I'm taking care of these gods that I have in my home. And if you take that from me, you are robbing me of a chance for me to be successful. They're really messing with who he is. And so he's pursuing because somebody has stolen that. That's the stated reason. But there's a different reason. He's ticked off at Jacob, and he has bad intentions toward him. Okay, you're up to the story with Laban and Jacob. Let me remind you where we're at with Joseph. He's put a test. Bring my brother back, and they do. They bring Benjamin back, and he can see Benjamin's alive. So he releases Simeon from jail, and it looks like this could go well, except he hasn't revealed himself yet. He still hasn't told them, I'm your brother. So he's still planning to play some games, and what he does is he goes to his steward and he says, take the silver goblet of mine and go and put this in my youngest brother's bag, bury it deep so he won't know it's there, and then I'm going to tell you what to do a little bit later. Well, the brothers, they have their food, they have all the brothers, they think life is good, they have left Egypt on their way, and then the story starts to unfold, and we're going to pick up, and I'm going to start showing you the links between these two stories. Start in Genesis 44. This is verse 4. The brothers had not gone far from the city when Joseph said to his steward, go after those men at once, and when you catch up with them, say. So he asked for a pursuit, and he uses the word catch up with them, which is interesting because when Laban pursues Jacob, this is what's said in verse 23 of 31 of Genesis. Taking his relatives with him, he pursued Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. The words pursue and catch are the exact identical words that you would see in both. And you're like, man, if that's the links. Yeah, if that were the only link, it'd be one thing. But you're going to see that there's a whole series of these, and they're going to add up to something. So this thing starts off with somebody being pursued and somebody being caught using the exact same words in the process. Back in 44, at the end of 44, the servant was told to say this to the brothers, why have you repaid good with evil? Right before Laban catches up with Jacob, he has a dream, and God says this to him in the dream. This is verse 24. Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And you have this phrasing, good and evil. Again, same words being used in both stories. In both stories, they're being pursued because of a stolen item that's not really, that somebody believes is stolen, but somebody else doesn't believe is stolen. All right? It gets complicated with that. But both of them are about stolen items in the process. In verse 5, when the servant is explaining to the brothers what he thinks has been stolen, he says, isn't this cup my master drinks and also uses for divination? Now, so this cup that Joseph buried in his youngest brother's bag, Benjamin, was something that he used in order to help him get some information about the future. Like, help me figure out what's going on. He used it for that. That's commented. It's worth noting that the idols that are in Rachel's possession that used to belong to Laban were used for that very thing. And you're like, oh, that's kind of a stretch. I don't know if we can buy that. Okay, let's go and do this then. Let's go back just a little bit. In 30, verse 27, you'll see this. Laban's talking to Jacob, and he says, if I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Both of these guys used the process of divination. Both of these guys had objects that were used in the process of divination, and all of that is recorded in both stories. So both of these, you have that popping out here too. In verse 32, Jacob is convinced nobody stole his idols, and so he makes this bold claim. But if you find anyone of your gods, that person shall not live. Like, if you find anybody here who did that, I'll kill him. Like, he put Rachel's life on the line. Don't worry about her. She's just as deceptive. She got it from the family. She's going to work this out, right? She's very sneaky. All right? But the brothers, in talking to the steward, are convinced there's not a single one of us that would have taken this cup. And so they say together in verse 9, if any of your servants is found to have it, he will die. Both are guaranteeing a death, convinced that they're innocent. Verse 33, Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two female servants, but he found nothing. After he came out of Leah's tent, he entered into Rachel's tent. In verse 12 of 44, look at how this search went down. It says it very plainly. The steward proceeded to search, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest, which is exactly what happened in the other story. There are 6 links that you can easily find between these stories. And it's kind of disturbing, because if you follow what's happening here, you're wondering why these stories are linked. Because Laban, he's not a good guy. But our guy Joseph, he's a good guy. Sure, he failed when he lied about his brothers. He cared about power initially. But God has changed his heart in the pit. In that prison, he became a different person. He's following after God. He's doing stuff that are going to make God's name famous by bringing all this food in that rescues all kinds of people. He's a good guy. And yet, if you sit here and you look back and forth, you have to conclude that Joseph is the new Laban in the story. How is it that our good guy is now being cast in the role of Laban? Well, maybe we answer it this way. Have you ever been betrayed? Like, when I use that strong of a word, if you have, something instantly comes into your mind. It probably doesn't have to be that strong. I could say, has anybody ever wounded you? Has anybody ever treated you or talked to you with just so much disrespect that whatever happened, whether it was betrayal, a wound, disrespect, it marked you? Like, it got into your soul and it hurt you deep. And over time, that pain may have died down. But you notice every once in a while that although it has faded into a memory, that you'll stumble over something, you'll talk to someone, you'll see someone, somebody will say something, and you will be flooded again with these emotions that you thought were long gone, long dead in you. What's happening? What's going on there? Well, sometimes when we're harmed, and if we don't choose to deal with it in a healthy way, what happens is it becomes anger, it becomes resentment, it becomes bitterness, and it doesn't reflect your life right now. But it sits there in your heart, just waiting for a moment to be stirred up. And when Joseph saw those brothers, he did not look at them like he was second in command of Egypt. What he remembered was he was a younger brother who had been betrayed, and all of a sudden this stuff that he hadn't dealt with for years flooded him again. And you know what we just found out? That when it comes to relationships, this is far less about one person being a good guy and one person being a bad guy, and it's far more about what's going on in the heart of you and in their heart. Like the hearts are at play here. And what happened for Joseph was he hadn't had to deal with this. It hadn't come to his mind. In fact, he had put it out of his mind. He hadn't even contacted his family until the moment that he saw those brothers. And the floods came back. You know, I think it's worth noting here. I think there's value in understanding what's happening. Literally, they have switched places in the story. When Joseph was sold, he was powerless to stop it. They put him in a pit where he felt hopeless. Those brothers held all the power, and they used it. Now, Joseph holds all the power, and he is playing with his brothers, and he has put them in a powerless situation where they feel hopeless. What I think is interesting about that is one of the things that you need when you decide to unload the junk from your heart, from a wound or from a betrayal or from anything like that, is that you're going to have a little bit of understanding of what happened with that other person. Not that you have to accept what they did. It's not that. But for some reason, the brothers misused their power, and now Joseph is misusing his power, and they're both now experiencing what that looks like. The brothers are now powerless, and Joseph was powerless, and now they're both experiencing what that feels like. How do you change this situation? How do you change it when this stuff has built up over years and is still in there gushing out? The answer is one or both hearts have to change. One or both hearts have to change. And it's really easy when you're the one who feels like you've been wounded, when you're the one who's cast yourself in the good guy role, to feel like that resentment, the anger, the bitterness that you have is fully justified. And that's what we see unfolding here. Until one thing happens that changes the whole movement of this story. And it doesn't happen in Joseph's heart first. Whose heart changes? Judah. Judah's heart changes. So Joseph's second test is to find that goblet in Benjamin's bag, and he's going to lock him in jail, and he's going to tell his brothers that he's going to stay there for the rest of his life. And he wants to see what they'll do. And Judah steps up and he said, I made a promise to my father that he would come home. I will take his place in jail. I will give up my life for my brother. I'll give up my life for the sake of this family. And that moment of sacrifice that we saw God working on in Judah's life over the course of 20 years breaks Joseph's heart. Check this out, verse 45:1. Then Joseph could no longer control himself. He's been in control this whole time. He's been playing games, he's directing his emotions, and he loses it. And finally, after all of this time, he reveals who he is. And guess what happens? His brothers are terrified, which is exactly right. He holds all the power. He's playing all the cards. And they're like, this is the guy we betrayed. This is the guy we sold into slavery. We are in trouble here. It's not how it turns out. Because of Judah's response, then Joseph's heart starts to break. And you see this happening in verse 14. Then he, Joseph, threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept. And Benjamin embraced him, weeping. And the healing begins. What's, I think, really cool, verse 15, and he kissed all of his brothers and wept over them. You know, there's no indication in the scriptures at all that any of the other brothers had changed. We don't know if they have. Nothing reveals that. Judah has. Joseph has. And when those guys' hearts got right, it spread to the rest of the family. And then something really cool happens. Maybe one of the coolest things that I think probably gets read over and missed. I want you to see the end of verse 15. Afterward, his brothers talked with him. I want to show you a picture that I took at Christmas of my kids. They're sitting around a table. I hope I put that in there. Can you guys find that? Did I not do it? Great balls of fire. Okay, so I've got to go get that for second service because it's worth seeing anyway. It's my 4 boys sitting around playing a board game with our 2 grandkids on their laps. And all they're doing is talking. They were talking about nothing special. There was nothing earth-shattering about it. They were just being brothers, talking about the game, talking about life with each other. I took a picture of it because I thought, this is a sweet moment that I want to remember. I want to show you something that's true about this family. By the way, if the band's out there, if they could come up, that would be great. I want to take you back to Genesis chapter 37. This is what's going on in the family after Joseph lied about his brothers and then gained favored status with dad. This is what the scriptures record. When his brothers saw that their fathers loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. They couldn't even talk to him. What I love is over the course of the few weeks that we've gone through this, I've tried to help you understand that God was concerned about what was going on in the lives of this family. He wanted them back on mission. And he hadn't given up on them, even though they were just horribly deceptive, horribly corrupt family. But God had made a promise, and he was going to find a way to do it. But the promise was twofold. And the second part that we looked at was that God was going to bless the world through these guys. But what was the first part of the promise? He's going to make them a great nation, and he's going to bless them. And in the midst of accomplishing these big goals, which you see him like, God used Joseph to save countless people from starvation, to save their family from starving. All of this is happening. These are big stories that are taking place. And in the midst of the big stories that are taking place, there's a small one that God seems to care just as much about as the big ones. He was trying to find a way to restore this family to a point where they would be whole with each other. And when the scripture said they talked with him, what's recorded there? Nothing special, nothing earth-shattering. They were just being brothers the way that God had meant them to be in the first place. And when I see something like that, it's really comforting to know that although God is really concerned about the big things and He's going to take care of some of these big things in our world that we see. Justice will be had at the end of the day. That He's just as concerned about the small thing that's going on in your life that could shape the way you see the world. And He wants to right that too. He's a good God. And it doesn't matter if it's big, it doesn't matter if it's small. He's deeply concerned about your life and the way you're choosing to live it. He's concerned about finding a way to unload those things that could end up being anger and resentment. He's about bringing healing. He's that good. It's easy to think of God doing the big stuff, and we see Him doing the big stuff in the story of Joseph. But at the end of the day, all the brothers standing around talking is incredible because of where they'd come from. And God was just as concerned about that. He's that good. I believe that. That He wants that for you too. And it might be hard. It might be hard when you're in the midst of those struggles to feel like God cares about that. But that's why I've asked the band to play you a song. It's going to remind you of the goodness of God, that He's that way all the time, and that if you will incline your heart towards Him, He could do some incredible things to heal, repair, and restore. At one point in the song, they're going to ask you to stand, and you're going to get to join them in singing. And I hope you'll lift your voice in loud praise to a good God who shows up in our lives even in the small ways. Guys?
We've got beauty for ashes. We've got joy for our mourning. Our praises will lift up all our heaviness. We've got peace in the chaos. We've got hope when we've gone lost. For when two of us together.
All the time, He is good.
goodness, the mercies enduring forever. Goodness of God is the story we're telling. Hey, church, can we stand? And we've been wrestling through so much in this series, and I just hope that with all of your hearts, we can just sing these words together and just declare to God how good He is. So we sing. And He is good. It's all the time. He is good. He is good. And He is good. It's all the time. He is good. And He is good. He is good. It's all the time. He is good. And He is good. And all the time. He is good. He is good. He is good. And all the time. He is good. Amen.
I think it's easy for us all to see God as a God that looks down at humanity from the 30,000 feet level, right? His plan is big, it's huge. He knows what's going to happen, but it doesn't really matter in the meantime, all these little details. But I think that story shows He does care about the little details. He does care about each of us deeply, individually, personally. Wants that relationship, wants you to come to Him and allow Him to restore you to the way that He created us, the way He intended us to be, at that perfect level, that whole level in relationship with Him. Hopefully that's refreshing to you. Hopefully that's encouraging to you, warms your heart that someone loves you that deeply with that much power. It should. It's such a cool thing. It's unique. Can we just pray together in praise of Him? Father, thank You for loving us. Thank You for Your desire to restore us, to work through all the brokenness and the crap and the junk in our lives that we've put there, that other people have put into our lives. God, thank You for just being willing and able to come into that and restore us, to heal us, to bring us to You and just embrace us, for being willing to just sit and talk with us, for wanting us to talk with You. We love You, Lord, and that it's more than we can ever ask for. It's more than we deserve, but we thank You for it. In Your name I pray, amen. Guys, thank you for coming today. After service, you probably smelled it already. There's some pancakes out there. Also, we have another mission trip fundraiser coming up for King's Barbecue. You can sign up online to either help out with that or order your chicken or ribs there. So thanks a lot for coming. We'll see you next week.